All right, this is OPEX Pain on the AirRunner. Like we talked about in energy system training overall, the overall goal for OPEX Pain is to learn how to be unsustainable. Now it sounds kind of interesting, but you're trying to do unsustainable activities to push that level of fatigue to really get to understand pain. There's three main reasons why we do pain training. To get a metabolic effect, to adapt to really high levels of stress in multiple different ways, cognitively and physically, and to possibly improve aspects of the aerobic potential or the aerobic threshold. Okay? So you have to know going in why we're doing pain. That's some of the pluses of it. Don't forget some of the downsides of pain is that because it's at a faster rate, the chances of injury go up a tiny bit. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the chance of injuries go up a tiny bit if there's technical flaws, mechanical issues, overreaching, poor lifestyle, etc. You just need to know that when rate goes up, the chance of that happening is higher. Don't also forget that it could result in people getting really attached to cortisol and adrenaline because doing pain training can get you into that glycolytic scenario, which is a higher metabolic stress response. Don't also forget that pain training, especially in the format of running, because it's such a high metabolic load and overall total load, it can lead to changes in proprioception both acutely after the training and then overall for the period of time. So pain training has a half-life where when you do it, it's a really beautiful actually dose response, but also if it's done incorrectly, it can be absolutely horrible. So that's why it's really important for you to recognize, first of all, to preempt the aspects of why we do pain. The only reason why you probably will be doing it maybe once or twice a year if you wanted to as a program, which I'll show you how to do, is really to add a little bit of a boost to the aerobic threshold. That's really why you may be doing it on the AirRunner. Otherwise, putting it inside of maybe some mixed modal work, which you'll see upcoming, could be something that can add some variation as well. But in order to train it, we've talked about this previously, but before you get into training OPEX Pain, you want to be strong enough and you want to have been practicing at least one full 8-week protocol of, 8 weeks, yes, twice per week for 2 weeks, some 4 sets, So 8-week protocol of sustain where you did a test, you did a retest, and then you did a test again of OPEX sustain and the 10-minute time trial. And I'd rather you go through that first just to ensure we have technical proficiency, understanding increased pace. And the reason why I'd rather you go through that first is that if you remember when you get to the 1-in-1 intervals times 16 sets for OPEX sustain at the end, that 1-minute interval is going to be closely resembling the pace that you're going to maintain for the pain scenario. So now you can see you have this wonderful little measurement that you finished at OPEX sustain as to how fast you maintained. That can give you some indication as to how fast you should go for your first couple of intervals that you do for 60 seconds on pain, okay? So that's the reason why you want to have those prerequisites in place. Continue to get strong enough, stay strong, 2-minute Sorensen, 25% body weight dumbbells per hand times 8 on a split squat, and then 5 push-ups. Maintain that strength. Ensure you do a sustained program, and that can get you into then, of course, testing the 3-minute pain test. Then you're going to have a training intervention, right, which we'll talk about for a period of time, maximum of 4 weeks, I would say, and then you're going to retest that to see if there was an improvement on it, okay? The training protocol itself, it's really 60 seconds. The effort, which I'll discuss, is a lot higher. So this 60 seconds, remember, is going to be faster than what you completed the 1-minute sustain intervals at. Just to remember, 1 and 1, 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 16 times. And look at the difference here, 1 minute on, 5 minutes off. So if it's 5 minutes off, I hope you could make sense of the fact that the pace that you're going to maintain for 60 seconds now is faster. Not alarmingly faster, but it's faster. And the way that you start is you really just want to do 2 repeats. The reason why you want to do 2 repeats, we want to show the strength in the repeatable interval method that we discussed to ensure that what you do in 60 seconds after a 5 minutes rest is repeatable. So let's just say you go a specific distance, 335 meters in 60 seconds. You're going to rest for 5 minutes, and you're going to do that same 60-second interval again. You want to see almost exactly 335 meters. Right? So if the first session you do 60 seconds, you do 335 meters, and you're like, oh, that was great, that felt really good, take 5-minute rest, you come back, you try it again, and then 30 seconds into your second set, you can't maintain pace and you do 280 meters. That's okay. No injury has occurred, no big issues, but the session is over. And the goal was, remember, for you to get 2 repeatable sets. So the next workout, guess what your goal is? To do 335 meters the first set, rest 5 minutes, and then do 335 again. Now that session is complete. So it's called 2+ sets, which means that if you can handle more than 2 sets in a day, that's all good, as long as they are repeatable in work. Okay? So arguably, you could do this for hours and hours, sure, if you want to. I mean, it's functional demand here in place and how much time people want to dedicate to it. If you can do it for a couple hours, I would say you're not going fast enough for the 60 seconds. That's the general indication, okay? So when you do this for 60 seconds, when you start out your very first session, your goal is 60 seconds, 90 to 95% hard, rest 5 minutes. You can do whatever you need for resting for that. Come back and do 60 seconds again and just do it twice. If you get repeatable sets, then a second time in that week, right, 2 to 3 days later, only twice per week, you're going to train that again. You have 2 options. You can go the same pace per 60 seconds and add another set, or you can try to get faster and add another set. It's up to you, as long as you're repeatable in your work each time. That's the overall goal. So 2+ times per session. Okay? And as mentioned, 2 times a week. I'm going to say a maximum of 4 weeks is best to train this. For those of you who train a lot or are really caught up in volume of training and you don't understand minimal effective dose or true intensity inside of training, it will look like it's very minimal to you. If that is the case, you're probably not going fast enough in the 60 seconds. You probably are not strong enough, or you probably haven't done a full sustained program to get to recognize just how fast this is, okay? Because most people who would say, oh, it's only a minute on, 5 minutes off times 2, that's not a lot, then that means you're not going fast enough. That's a pretty simple way to understand that. And it should only be for 4 weeks maximum. You can do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's up to you, but max 4 weeks. That's just based upon my observation and empirical data with lactate training and glycolytic training and pain training over a period of time. People just can't handle that. All other characteristics of gain and sustain just start diminishing when people do pain training for too long. So a couple times a year, maybe 3 times a year for this 4-week progression, that's enough. Your goal per session is, as I mentioned previously, you can increase average speed per 60 seconds, or you can add more sets to the workout. So let's just play this out. Week 1, you do 60 seconds on, 5 minutes off times 2 on both days. The next week, you go 60 seconds on, 5 minutes off times 3 both days. The third week, you go 60 seconds on, 5 minutes off times 4 both days. You see that? That's just progressive overload of the total sets. You can also do this. Week 1, 60 seconds on, 5 minutes off times 2, twice a week. The second time you do it in the week, you're going to try to go faster slightly for the 60 seconds, even though it is repeatable. Do you see that? So I've improved not by the volume of the sets, but I've improved by the average speed inside of the 60-second interval. Okay? And in most times, this is a general recovery period. This should be enough to help you recover. Just know that when you get beyond 3, 4, 5 sets, you will certainly get a metabolic response that you have to have a great base of sustainable training in place in order for you to recover effectively from those. But that's why I love the work-rest scenario. If you can't do the work and you can't repeat it, you're not effectively doing the energy system training correctly. That's just a basic rule of thumb. So to recap on that, the effort is now a lot higher. It should be reflective in that 1 minute as to what you finished with sustain for the 1 times 16, 90 to 95%. You're going to progress this in a couple of ways. You can do average speed per 60 seconds in each session over time, like session compared to the next session. That can get faster. Or you can increase the total number of sets. As long as it's always repeatable, you still want to have that in place even though it's pain training, okay? So to recap on OPEX Pain, prerequisites, you got to be strong enough or maintain strength, and you have to have practice sustain. Don't forget that when you test the 3-minute time trial in distance, you want to do a training intervention up to 4 weeks. The following week, retest. So then you can see exactly what you did correctly or incorrectly in that training intervention that leads to your improvements of OPEX Pain. What the working sets are like, very similar if you remember to the air bike. 60 seconds, really hard, right? 90 to 95%. 5 minutes complete rest, times 2 to start, just to get you on this repeatable format. You can progress it a couple of ways, average speed, and then total sets over time. That's OPEX Pain. That'll lead into you practicing OPEX gain should you wish to.